Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, and today we are doing a VCT Americas season preview for the team Furia. Furia is an esports organization out of Brazil, and they competed in the VCT Americas League last season, and their placements and results overall were pretty disappointing for fans of this team that had, semi-high expectations of this team. Starting off with lock-in, they placed 9th to 16th. They did win their first match, but then they lost their next one. Americas, they ended up placing 6th, so they did qualify for playoffs, but then lost pretty quickly. And there was hope that maybe this team can pull it together. I saw some comments on my predictions video saying that maybe they could pull something together and that they could do good and potentially win. That did not happen. They bowed out pretty early, 5th to 6th placement. So definitely not the results that you're looking for, when you're trying to compete with the other Brazilian teams such as Loud and MIBR. MIBR was even worse than this team, but Loud is one of the best teams in the world. So Furia wanting to be competitive with those teams as well as the rest of the Americas, and unfortunately they just couldn't really get a lot of motion last year. They had some good players, they had some good things about them, but they didn't really seem to look elite at a lot of points. They did have some decent stretches where they looked like they could be a dangerous team, but it tended to fade out and teams figured them out. So what did this org do for this team during the offseason? Well, players out are Mazine, Quick, and Digizine. Players in are Havoc and Lizy out of the Tier 2 system in Brazil. They also have Conan, who was an extra for them last year, only played a couple matches, but he will now be on the permanent roster as their IGL. At the very least, that is what Liquipedia says. VLR doesn't list them having an IGL right now, so I'm just going off of what they're saying. So if I'm wrong, they're wrong. But Digizin was a very good jet last year. I remember watching his match with this team against Sentinels, and he performed really well. He was pretty dynamic, and he was doing good. I don't know if he had an overall good year. He now doesn't have a spot in franchising right now. Mazine and Quick, they have now moved on to the other Brazilian teams, Quick with Loud and Mazine with MIBR. So those two players are talented players that were picked up by other Tier 1 organizations, with their replacements bringing into Tier 2 players that did perform very well in the Tier 2 system, but there's still some questions with it. Championships won by the org RZO, and for their 2023 MVP, I chose Digizin. As I said, he was a very good jet player last year. I guess the org just didn't really see a future with him and wanted a replacement. Looking at the 2023 stats for all of these players, starting with Khil. He was on this team last year. He had 522 kills, 524 deaths, 231 assists for key ratio of 0.99. He was on smokes mainly with Astra, Omen, and Brimstone, but also played a little bit Sentinel with Killjoy. Decent stats for a smokes player. If a smokes player has a KD ratio either at 1 or above 1, or I guess just below in Khalil's case, that does mean that he's pretty good at fragging out. That doesn't necessarily mean he's good at the other jobs that smokes players have, because that's obviously what they're known for, but if you can at least trust them to not just die all the time and at least be able to put up some frags during matches, then that is an effective smokes player. At least it's one effective element of a smokes player, so decent job keeping him on the team. Moving on to MW Zara, I hope I'm saying that right. He was also on this team last year. He had 594 kills, 589 deaths, 271 assists for key ratio of 1.01. Characters he played last year were Killjoy, Viper, Raze, Sova, Sky, and Fade. So flex player that played a lot of different roles, whatever one he needed to fill, but I do think hopefully they get this character list a bit shorter and MW Zara is able to, maybe just focus on one specific role. In off-season events, he has been playing Duelist, so decent chance he sticks on the role if that's what they've been running, but Havoc is also a Duelist player, so we'll see how that works out. Moving on to their new additions, starting with the previously mentioned Havoc. He had 730 kills, 605 deaths, 174 assists for key ratio of 1.20. He was playing for the Tier 2 Brazilian team called the Union, and he performed very well, but he was also moved to the bench halfway through the year. I tried to find the reason why. I couldn't find it online, so if you know what it is, please let me know in the comments. On that team, though, he played Jet, Raze, and Neon. So in off-season events so far, he has been mainly playing Initiator. I wonder if that sticks. If this team does well, then he'll probably stick like that, but I don't know, because is MW Zara the better option for Duelist, or is Havoc, since he's been playing that role previously, is that the role that you should have him on? There is something to be said about some Duelist players coming up from Tier 2 where maybe they're playing that Duelist role in Tier 2 just because they're better than most of the other competition, and if they can frag out and get kills, then that's obviously beneficial to be the Duelist player on the team, but that might not be where their full skill lies. But at the same time, it could mean that you're not warmed up on the roles, that you're not as used to those other roles, and you're just focusing on just fragging out, and then when you eventually have to switch on a different team, it just doesn't work out as well. So Hopefully that doesn't happen with Havoc. We will see. Moving on to Lizy, he had 1,012 kills, 862 deaths, 336 assists for KD ratio of 1.17. He was on a tier 2 Brazilian team called Khil Stars, and on that team he played Raze, Neon, KO, and Sky. So yet another player that played a lot of duelists last year, but he also played a bit of initiator. So far he's been playing smokes, which does surprise me a little bit because Khil has been playing Sentinel mostly for them. So we'll see if that sticks. I do question some of the comps that they've been running in off-season events. And then moving on to Conan, who only played in a handful of matches last year. 40 kills in those matches, 49 deaths, 30 assists for KD ratio of 0.81. Characters he played were Sova and Sky. So if Conan ends up being an improvement when it comes to the IGL lane, then this would be a good decision for Furia. But again, I don't fully know if he is, but that's what Liquipedia has him listed as. But it could be an improvement, or it could, be a downgrade. We will see. So overall, when I look at this roster, I do question its construction when it comes to roles. I think you have some players that so far in the offseason have been playing roles that they weren't playing last year, and that can work, but it can also, really throw some players off. With Khil being good on smokes, maybe they just wanted to switch him to a more active role. And, MW Zera being the duelist player, I mean, I don't know, his key ratio was okay last year, but I don't know if I see him as a guy that can really frag out. Whereas Havoc at the tier 2 level did perform really good with a 1.20 KD ratio on duelist, so that is a very good stat to have on that role. And you have Lizy on smokes instead of Khil. Maybe that'll work, but again, he had a very good year in tier 2 as well, so it's just, I don't know how this team is going to work when it comes to character composition, and it seems like they're trying some funky things, and I don't know if it's really going to work, especially within a very competitive Americas league. Looking at their maps from last year, their best maps were Split with a 3-2 record. Attack was 49%, defense was 51%. Icebox, they played it 3 times, but it wasn't one of their better maps. 2-1 record, 70% on attack, defense was 47%. Their worst maps start with Bind, 1-4 record, 45% on attack, defense was 52%. Fracture, 0-3 record, didn't win once, attack 50%, defense was 26%. So obviously this is a mostly new roster with 2 new players and then the sub from last year jumping in. So this map pool isn't really too relevant, but the map pool last year was really bad. So does Conan and the coaching staff, do they find ways to improve this map pool? I mean, if they're going to be successful at all, they're going to have to, but I just don't know. So overall, with this roster, I just don't know if I see a lot of talent here. I mean, there are some decent players. I think Havoc should do well. With Khil having the year he had last year, it was a decent year, but on a different role. Do we see that happen still with MW Zera being the duelist player? I mean, he's capable of doing it for sure, but I don't know if he's going to be able to match the skill level of other duelists within the Americas, because there are some very good duelist players in there. Unfortunately, with the Brazil region, there isn't really a lot of upcoming new really good talent. It's been a bit stagnant down there, unfortunately. Hopefully we see that improve, and people saying that get proven wrong. I would love to be wrong about that, because having new exciting players come from those regions, I think is very, very interesting and very good for the scene, obviously for the health. So maybe if a team like Furia goes on a run, they can inspire more Brazilians to play Valorant, and for the talent pool to, maybe that helps the talent pool a bit. But I just don't know if I see it. I really think this team's going to have either similar placements or worse placements to last year. I just don't know if they have the talent to match the other teams. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you think Furia is going to surprise people and be a lot better than what they looked like on paper? Or are they going to crash and burn and have a unfortunately bad year? Please click like if you enjoyed the video. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.